very much. Welcome, everyone. At this time, I'd like to introduce and welcome our presenters today. Scott Provost is with us with the Northern New England Node, and Amanda Moore is with us with the Clinical Coordinating Center. Amanda, let's go ahead and turn things over to you now.
All right, thank you, Liz. All right, welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. In the next hour, we will be exploring topics that a research site may find helpful regarding site monitoring visits, also known as everything you wanted to know about monitoring visits but were afraid to ask. And I do say afraid to ask because of someone who has been on both sides, both being at a CTN site, waiting for the monitor to show up, and being a monitor on a visit at the site. I know that it can be an intimidating or fear-provoking experience. So the goal of today's training is to leave you better informed on what to expect and give you some ideas on how to be prepared going into a site monitoring visit. And for today's training, it's actually going to be divided into 5 topics: the types of visits, preparing for a visit, expectations during the visit, the site's responsibilities after the visit, and also looking at some processes for site staff to address quality control between site monitoring visits. So before we get started, we would actually like to go ahead and do a quick polling question. And so for this question, what we're looking for is your level of experience with monitoring visits. So whether that you've been monitored less than 6 months, 6 months to 2 years, or more than 2 years. So if you could go ahead and put in your response. All right. It looks like most everyone has had a chance to respond at this point. Okay. So now, as you can see on your screen, it looks like most of the people that we have with us today have more than 2 years of experience, and that's great. There's a couple portions where we'll be looking for some audience input, and you might have some really good additions to add. We also have a few people with less than 6 months experience. You'll find through this training that, coming into future monitoring visits, that you might have a little better idea of what to do in preparation and what to expect. All right, and now Scott will review some terminology.
Thanks, Amanda. So before we dig deeper into any of the material, we wanted to just draw the distinction between a couple of terms, 2 terms to be precise. One is quality assurance, and that's probably the most familiar term because we keep referring to quality assurance or QA monitoring visits. And quality assurance stands for all those planned and systematic actions established to ensure that the trial is performed and the data are generated and recorded according to good clinical practice standards. Quality control, on the other hand, kind of takes it a step further. These are the techniques and actually activities undertaken within the quality assurance system to ensure that the requirements for quality of the trial have been fulfilled. So I think quality control, in a nutshell, is something within the purview of the site to realize the quality assurance process is going smoothly. And now Amanda is going to go over a couple of points related to the Code of Federal Regulations and monitoring requirements.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. Yes, I'm sure that you are all familiar with ICH and the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations. They do outline in a few sections different requirements related to monitoring. In ICH E6, a few different key sections, 5.18.1, the purpose of monitoring, 5.18.3, the extent and nature of monitoring, and also section 5.18.4, monitors' responsibilities. Something that I found, way back when I was working at a site. I was brand new there. It was my first experience at a research site dealing with an upcoming site monitoring visit. And actually reading through that section and knowing the kinds of things that the monitor was looking for and what the monitor was going to be possibly asking about and so forth, really helped me to better prepare for the visit and not to be so anxious about it also. So that can be a really good section to look over, and it's not very long either. And then also, of course, the monitoring reports in section 5.18.6, also a good place to reference. And in the CFR, 21 CFR 312 subpart D, monitoring responsibilities are conveyed through a discussion on the sponsor's responsibilities. And also, the ICH E6 and the CFR are easily accessible online, but we have also included in your handouts that section, ICH E6. So you'll have that for easy reference. All right, Scott, let's start the topic discussion explaining those different types of monitoring visits.
Thank you. So this slide just presents the different types of monitoring visits, and you'll notice that there's two columns, one for the Clinical Coordinating Center and one for the node. And the monitoring visits are essentially the same, but we put those both up there because in some studies, the node is also involved in doing some level of QA monitoring. And the four types of visits are an initiation visit. That's when the site is kind of deemed ready to start a protocol. Interim or routine visits, those happen periodically at a set schedule throughout a clinical trial. A closeout visit, and the closeout visit, and from a QA perspective, is different from the data closeout and database lock. So again, we're focusing here on quality assurance closeout visits. And finally, the fourth type of visit are what they call for-cause visits. And those can happen throughout the trial, and they could be for something that requires a little bit more investigation. For example, some kind of data discrepancy that was not addressed during a routine visit that requires more inspection. So these are the types of site monitoring visits. The next thing we want to talk about is kind of preparing for a site monitoring visit, because I think preparing and careful preparation enables the monitoring visits to go more efficiently and much smoother. The first thing that is a good reminder is the site should consider and take into account what kind of performance metrics that they're getting judged on in terms of the monitoring visits. And for your convenience, we did include in the handouts copies of the node and Clinical Coordinating Center monitoring templates. It's also important to sign and return the site visit confirmation memo. This is a memo that's usually sent by the Clinical Coordinating Center. It's just usually addressed to the site TI and the study coordinator, and it's confirming the time and date of an upcoming visit. The site should also take the time to arrange space and internet access for the monitor, because more and more of the studies require web access. This is very helpful, and again, it makes the visit go more efficiently. Another tip to consider when preparing for visits is avoiding conflicts of interest. What we mean by this is the monitor's there to do serve a function for the clinical trial, and there's no need really to kind of offer lunch or take them out for lunch. Give them the space to do their work, respond to any questions, and keep that kind of professional boundary. And then a really helpful tip is to get the binders, study binders, participant and regulatory binders accessible before the visit. And that, again, makes things go pretty efficiently. Before I go to the next slide, I just wanted to point out that the different templates, because we did include them in the handout, but we also have them here. So the first one is just the template for the node, and this is the node monitoring template. So for many of you, this may be familiar, but for those who are newer to the QA role, it's just something to take a look at and consider. And then the second one is the Clinical Coordinating Center template, and those are a series of check boxes, but they also have space for written comments in there. So these are the reports that you would get after a visit is completed, but it's helpful to look at in advance so that you know what you're getting judged on. So I'll go back to the slide. The next slide again is some further tips on preparing for monitoring visits. And one of the big things a monitoring visit involves is a lot of coordination. So when the monitor arrives, you want to help them prepare for visiting the pharmacy if it's a medication trial, giving the monitor a tour of the facility. That's always very helpful. And scheduling a meeting time with the principal investigator. It's also helpful for members of your team to understand your roles and responsibilities, because the monitor may have a question for someone, and they should understand that their role and responsibility in advance to know what was in their purview to address and respond to. And then the other thing to consider when preparing for a visit is any staffing adjustments. For example, if the monitor needs some time with the study coordinator, maybe a research assistant has to pick up the roles of the study coordinator during the visit. So just so sites are aware of staffing adjustments that may be required. And I guess if we could open the phone lines, we wanted to find out from sites what preparation tasks people have found helpful.
Participant lines are open at this time.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, the
Your
phone
lines
line
are
open?
open.
Thank you.
Oh. Hello?
Hello.
Okay. This is Mary Lee from CBCDS. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because I didn't hit any buttons or anything. I wasn't sure if I was on. Actually, we're preparing for an upcoming site visit. Right now we're trying to coordinate the exact date in September. So what we just already started doing is first you have to get the date, make sure that the coordinator, the RA, the people that are involved in the everyday study are available to answer any questions, and also the principal investigator. Typically the monitor comes in and, likes to kind of meet with everybody first to kind of go over a schedule of the 2 days that she's going to be there. So if there are any questions, or if she needs to maybe track down the node coordinator or the principal investigator, that, we have an idea of where they're going to be at what time. We've already discussed, like, where we're going to put her, which office would be more conducive. Typically they bring their own laptop, but we always have a backup computer just in case something happens, because that has happened in the past. Their laptop hasn't worked or whatever, and they need to get onto Inform or Chris. So we use one of our offices, usually maybe where the PHI binders are, and then we bring the subject binders to her. Typically it's a lot of organization, just to know that they want that main the main log with the study IDs and the people. They need that first, and then they want to have certain subject binders, and she'll tell you what number she's going through. From the templates, what they're looking for. Primary outcomes is one thing that they always look at, and for Study 31 we have the substance use calendars. So we know to kind of eyeball those before she comes to make sure all the no's are circled, and if we can make sure everything's the same in the CRIS. If not, she looks at those charts and tells us what we might have missed, or it isn't consistent. We tend to have the scrolling issue whenever we're putting data in. If you don't hit it right, it'll scroll down to the next date, and it'll be wrong, but it's a typo. It's a what do they call that in there? I forget the thing in the Inform when you transaction error. So we typically go back to make sure that we're getting our data in correctly for that. That's something that we know that she looks at. Regulatory binders, we need to know where they are, where they're kept, because she will look at them. She'll tell you if she wants to see them first before she starts on the charts, but we have them available for her because sometimes she goes back if there's SAEs that she needs to know about. She also needs the chart, the regulatory binders. She needs to look to make sure people's licenses are up to date and that the protocol versions are up to date and everything's in the regulatory binder with the approvals and the approval letters. So it's good to go back to that template that you had put up there to see, you know, what she's going to look for or he's going to look for, so that you have an idea of where they are. You can have it available for her. As far as I find that, like the wait, I'm going back here, I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent here. Facility tour, they tended to do that on the initiation visit, but she's kind of aware of our facility. It's kind of all together for her. On the other studies, we have a pharmacy downstairs, so we would have to coordinate with them. When we found out when the site monitoring visit was, I would email the head pharmacist to let her know, because she needs to prepare just like we do for the upcoming visit. She has to have all her regulatory things, all her documentation. So that's real important to keep everybody in the team, you know, aware of it from day one so that everybody's prepared. Resolving any outstanding, whenever, after the monitoring visit's done, we try to fix what we can, you know, right then and there. If she says, you know, this is a scrolling issue or whatever, we try to fix it right away. There's some things that we can, and when that report comes out, that's our checklist to make sure that whatever she has indicated needs changed or fixed, we go and we do that. And then like, a couple weeks later, RA and myself, we both double check it just to make sure all those outstanding those issues are completed, you know, within a reasonable time. So we like to do that within like the month after we get it. She does it in the first 2 weeks, and then I go and I check it. That's just our double, you know, check there. I don't know, but that's what we're doing right now to prepare. And there hasn't been, I don't know, any problems because we are prepared. We know that she's coming. She's coming to help us to make sure that we are meeting the requirements for the protocol and the good clinical practices. So we work together as a team, which is a different way of thinking. Usually when people think, oh my God, a monitoring visit, you know, wow. It's not like that. It's taken me a while to like work with the monitor because they're there to help you. We're all here on the same team. We want to get the same results in every site. So, you know, and it's easy to talk to her about that if she has any questions. You know, every site does certain things a little bit different, so she may not be as aware of like how we're doing it at our site as somebody else is doing it at theirs. Their pharmacy might be on in a different building, or pharmacy's here, you know, something that simple. So it's also important to have those SOPs right there in case there is a question. You can show her these are our SOPs, this is how we do it at our site, if there's, you know, that bit of a detail that she needs to know.
This is Scott, Mary Elisa. Thank you very much. This is helpful. Just before we close up the phone lines, does anybody else have any other questions or points they want to raise about kind of preparation tasks for monitoring visits?
This is Lynn from Johns Hopkins. I just wanted to comment on the preparation tools that you gave. It's very, very helpful, and we were actually doing this recently for our QA monitoring visit, but also the person that was on before talked about having an extra laptop, so that's also useful too. So I thank you for the information.
Sure.
And the one thing I wanted to echo, Mary Elise, you mentioned about the kind of the team approach. I think that's a good point to remind folks about. Is it's not an adversarial relationship. It is a team and a collaborative approach. And the site and the MS monitor should be working together to solve QA issues. At this point, I think we can go ahead and close the phone line and move on to the next topic.
How do you do that? How does he go into
Your listening audience lines are closed.
So the next slide, we talked about preparing for a site visit. The the next thing we want to talk about is what to expect during a site monitoring visit. And for many of you, again, this is going to be a refresher because you've had a experience working with quality assurance monitors. But in general, monitors work independently to review the study material, and during the visits they may have periodic questions or discussions as needed. Amanda, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that's about it, but I do really think it's an important point that, something that you don't need to expect during a monitoring visit is for the monitor to show up with a scary mask and big claws. During the visit they are primarily working independently, but the whole process is meant to make the entire national research team more effective.
Thanks. So the next slide, again, is going to focus on what else to expect during a monitoring visit. This was raised before. Have the any kind of logs like the site visitor log ready for a monitor to sign. Again, it's helpful to prepare a brief planning meeting with the monitor. This will help to review the schedule for the day. Any ground rules on how issues will be flagged by the monitor. Some monitors that we've worked with before have used some kind of like sticky notes, and they number issues in binders. Again, what binders might be reviewed during the visit, and then the time of a wrap-up summary or meeting when the visit's about to end. And the other two things to keep in mind is the monitor can potentially review any study materials. These include the participant binders as well as regulatory materials. And the site during a visit should ensure availability for inquiries or requests from the monitor. Amanda, anything else you want to add to this piece?
Nope, I think that covers it.
Okay. So next, Amanda's going to talk about site responsibilities post-monitoring visits.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. So now the visit is complete. The monitor has left. So what do you do next? Well, during the wrap-up meeting, you'll find out about some of the key points in the findings. Sometimes, depending on the time available, all the findings will be reviewed, or just the, I guess, most pressing findings. So you can take those items that you get from the wrap-up meeting, and you can begin working on those right away, as Mary Elise had mentioned. Also, in about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on whether it was a CCC monitor or a node monitor, you'll receive that site monitoring report. And when you receive that, you could find, you might see that there were findings in the areas of discrepancies or queries, protocol violations, safety follow-up. You might need to do some things with regulatory documentation, and also addressing issues with consent forms. I also really liked what had been mentioned by a moment ago by one of our attendees, that going over that report with more than one of the site staff members and having it double checked, then you can really ensure that everything is taken care of and that nothing has been missed. I think that's a really good way to go about that after a visit. And of course, you want to make sure that all of these items are taken care of as soon as possible, and that any corrective actions or changes in local SOPs have been taken care of right away. Also, so you completed the visit, you've taken care of those action items. Now, there are also some things that you can do between visits for quality control. So one thing is ongoing study chart review. So you can look through those study participant binders. And one way, I actually monitored a site where they had a checklist set up, and when one RA would complete a visit, then that information would go to the other RA, and they would do their own quality assurance check on that information. And it really, made for some really, good, clean data. So that was one way to use the team approach with the site staff to to improve the accuracy of the data. Also, one thing I'd like to point out is that retrospective resolutions, they can be costly both in time and in the quality of the data for the study. And what I mean by that is, so when the monitor does come to the site, it could be a month between visits, it could be 3 months between visits. So when they do show up and they do identify something that needs to be corrected, that's going to cost time in making those corrections. Also, if that had been a consistent error on several participant binders, then that could be something that might make the quality of the data a little less than what we would like it to be. So doing some quality control processes of your own can help prevent kind of large-scale retrospective resolutions. Also, applying lessons learned proactively. So anything that you do find out during your own quality assurance checks or during site monitoring visits, make sure those are being applied to all of the participants and all of the staff so you can avoid repeating those errors or having those same errors that might not have been identified before found at later monitoring visits in other participants. So also something that is very important. So sometimes site staff will leave or there might be a new site staff person that comes on to help with the study. When that happens, ensuring the proper training of those new hires is very important for quality control. One thing that would probably be good, as was mentioned earlier in ICH E6, the section on monitor responsibilities, I found back in the day when I read through that as a new RA that was very helpful. And that could be something that you might want to add into your site training for any new staff, just so they're aware of all of those things that the monitor will be verifying. And Scott, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Amanda, I think the only thing that I wanted to emphasize, and you mentioned it earlier on, is the careful kind of QA report review. I can't emphasize that enough. After the site receives the report from the QA monitor, it's very helpful to go over that earlier than later. And also the amount of content in the report will vary depending on how far along you are in the study. Like if you're in the early on in the study and there are not many charts reviewed yet, the length of the report might be shorter. But as you move farther along progress on the study and more charts are reviewed, obviously the length of the report will get longer and you'll have to take more time to review that. But that thing, I'd stress that is careful review of the report when you receive it.
Right, that's a really good point. And also, in addition to that, I'm sure anybody who has had a monitoring experience in the CTN, you'll notice that sometimes discrepancies that are found, they're identified through manually generated queries in the Inform system. Also, going through those reports, if you just get rid of all the red lights, that doesn't mean that all of those discrepancies have been addressed, just because sometimes in those tables you'll find discrepancies that did not result in a query, but that had some other type of corrective action. So yes, I agree. Careful review of those reports is very important. Okay, and now we would like to give the audience another chance to share some ideas and thoughts on quality control processes that are completed at your site. Could we go ahead and open up those questions?
Your listening audience lines are open at this time.
Okay, so does anybody have any ideas or processes to share that are used at your site?
This is Mary Elise again. Real quick, this is something that we do. We find it very helpful when we do chart reviews. We have a QA monitor. She'll come in, they're local. I'm not sure what her title actually is, but she's like our local QA person. She'll come in, she reviews the charts. As far as what I do, I might look for certain points, like I make sure all the AEs are documented. The different, T's are crossed, I's are dotted. the RA, she may go over the SUC. There's certain points that we focus on, so that way, if I miss something, she picks it up, and then the QA monitor oversees everything and she marks it. It's just something I find very helpful, like if I monitor two certain things specifically, and I go through it detail to detail, and then Leanne does the other part. We tend not to miss as much because then I'll check her kind of overview, she'll check mine, and then when the QA, our local person, comes, she checks it. I don't know if that's helpful. That's just what we do. I find that it works real well.
Yeah, no, that is a good point, that having, you know, focused reviews where you have certain people focusing on certain items or focusing on other staff's work, I have seen that be very effective with different sites. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have quality control process to share? I think I saw that Claire Tyson was attending today. Claire, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I just thought that you might have some interesting perspectives from, you know, working on, you know, at the node level and also.
Sure. I mean, one thing that, you know, some of the CTN protocols that have come out recently, they do have node-level quality assurance monitoring roles. However, there are also some other protocols that have come out that don't have these roles, you know, written into the protocol. One thing I just wanted to point out is that at our node, our PI has always maintained that at the node level, she would like to have a QA monitor always on every protocol at a local level. So there's myself and Christine Horn, and so for all of our trials, we travel up to our site. It depends on the study in terms of how frequently we go, or you know how complex the study is. For the POTS, I went monthly for the first several months. And then once things started looking really great, then I kind of tapered off a little bit. So, I mean, we also have local calls weekly with the PI as well as the monitor, so that we can sort of address any problems that may come up, or you know, help problem solve if we can. And that's sort of a more project management. It also incorporates, you know, recruitment, retention, as well as any sort of data entry questions that they might have that we can help them with, as well as address any safety questions that they have. When we do our quality assurance monitoring, you know, a lot of the QA plans will say to monitor 100% of the first 10. Well, I say we probably monitor 100% all the way through. At least that's kind of our goal, and we certainly look at every safety document that we can at each and every visit. So we have a little bit more thorough than some of the plans that are out there. And I think it's, you know, one of the things that I think is really important to do is kind of what's been already discussed, is that it's a team effort. And I've noticed that the sites really do look forward to us coming, kind of weird, but yes, they do. They actually will let us know when the MS visit is scheduled and request that we come up maybe a couple weeks before, so that we can look through the charts and flag any, you know, issues that we've identified, so that those can be resolved prior to MS's visit.
Great. Okay. That's very helpful information. And as you mentioned that you may go kind of above and beyond what some monitoring plans call for, and you know, I would never deter anyone from going above and beyond. You know, kind of the whole reason why we do this process is you know, to protect the rights, safety, and welfare of the participants, and also, you know, to make sure we have top quality data. A lot of people put a lot of effort into these trials, from, you know, the participants' time and effort, the research staff at the site, the lead investigating teams, and the more effort that we put into making sure that we have top quality data and procedures, then the better result we're going to have in the end, or the better chance we'll have for some good findings in the end. So yeah, I would never deter anyone from going forth with a process like that.
Amanda, this is Scott. I just want to make one other point. I like the models that Claire and Mary Elise talked about. One thing that we've done at our site, the research assistants are involved in the QA process. And what we've done is, for example, let's say one research assistant was responsible for participant number 135. Well, another research assistant would review the chart for 135 as kind of a double check, an internal kind of quality control process. And we found that model helpful as well.
Yes, those internal quality quality checks, those any sites that I've seen employ those, it shows in their site monitoring reports. It really does. Okay, and did anybody else have anything to add with quality control processes, site visits?
This is Ed in Philadelphia.
Hi, Ed.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that what I try to do is look for patterns. No matter how good the protocol is or how good the lead node is, sometimes there are some tricky things that happen that you don't always see, and you keep stumbling into making an error. In our case, for instance, there were a lot of triggers, the protocol, having to do with lab test values, and we ended up having to develop our own worksheet to track changes that might occur over the months that might trigger some kind of a redraw or an evaluation by a clinician with regard to clinically significant.
That actually is a really good point. So it sounds like a trend was identified and something that might need some improvement, and then a new tool was developed to address that, to ensure that things were done as they should be. That is definitely a good idea. Looking at trends or patterns, and for what is going good, and also for what may be causing problems or causing some trouble. That can be an excellent quality control process, because once those are identified, then you can either develop new local SOPs or develop some site-specific tools that could potentially even be shared with the entire protocol team. So thank you very much for sharing. And actually, we can go ahead and close those lines now.
The listening audience lines are closed at this time.
Okay, and now that concludes our 5 topic areas for covering during this training. Now we do have a few polling questions. I'll go ahead and open up that first question. And for this question, a site is unsure what to do about the action items listed in the monitoring report. What should the site do? So the options: discuss with the monitor at the next visit, contact the monitor to clarify, or mark action item as complete. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at these results. So it looks like most people did respond with contact the monitor to clarify, and that is most certainly the correct response. I would advocate that that would be the best way to go about this situation from the responses provided. If at any time that you're unsure about something that was identified during a monitoring visit, please don't hesitate to contact the monitors. As we said, it's teamwork that makes these trials successful, and the monitors are there not only to to review the data and put out site visit reports, but to also offer support. Now, I do see that we did have a response for discuss with the monitor at the next visit. Now, where I can see that where the logic would be that then you could discuss it face-to-face with the monitor at the next visit, But just keep in mind that sometimes those site visits are 3 months apart. So if there's something that was cited as needing improvement in the site visit report, if you wait those 3 months, then you could potentially be making that same mistake on other participants also, as well as leaving things potentially incorrect in the meantime. So yeah, go ahead and contact those monitors. All right, Scott, I'll actually turn it over to you for the next polling question.
Okay, give me 1 second. So the next question, at the last minute, the study coordinator becomes unavailable for a scheduled QA monitoring visit. What should the site do? Reschedule the visit, cancel the visit, or designate another staff member? So give people a few moments to respond. Looks like people are still responding. Okay, I'll go ahead and give me 1 second.
Scott, I'll go ahead and show the results.
Oh, there I got it. So the results are shown. And the response that's the correct answer for this, I think most people got this, was designate another staff member. And the take-home message or the take-home point for this slide is that quality assurance monitoring in clinical trials is a team approach. And it's better to designate another staff member to keep up the momentum of QA visits rather than cancel the visit or reschedule the visit. So again, that's the take-home message, is that clinical trials take a lot of effort from a number of people, and we want to keep that momentum going in terms of QA chart review. So Amanda will take on the next polling question.
Okay, and this will be our last polling question. So you still need site research staff after your site completes its monitoring closeout visit, but before data lock. True or false? So the monitors come for the closeout visit, that's been completed, but there's been no word of data lock yet. Do you still need to have your site research staff there? Okay. So we're still getting some responses in. Okay, I'll go ahead and show these results. So as you can see, most people responded with true, that yes, you will still need site research staff after your closeout monitoring visit, but before data lock. And that is correct. The reason why that is correct is because even after you've had your closeout visit from this CCC monitor, there will still be auto-generated queries that will appear in the Inform system, in addition to other loose ends that may need to be tied up. So having staff there, and not only any staff person, but someone with training on the Inform system or the electronic data capture system, is very important right up until data lock. Okay, so that concludes our polling questions. And now go ahead and pull the slides back up, and Scott, I'll turn things back over to you.
Okay. So we wanted to provide folks with just some resources and ideas of where they can turn to for other information. And included in your handouts was, again, copies of the monitoring report templates from the Clinical Coordinating Center and the NODE monitoring report templates. We also provided the guidance for industry, the Good Clinical Practice document, and Monitoring Clinical Investigations Guide, as well as Preparing for Clinical Monitoring Visits and FDA Audits. And we found these handouts to be pretty helpful. And another resource that I keep handy at my desk, it's a handbook, and it's put out by a company called Barnett Educational Services. There's a cost to it. It's about $45, but it's very helpful. It covers regulatory issues, consent-related issues, and it has a really helpful glossary of terms. I keep it by my desk. I respond to it often if we have any kind of regulatory questions or during a QA visit. I encourage folks to, if you can't buy one, maybe perhaps borrow one from somebody, but they're very helpful resources. And let's see. So just to summarize, during the training today, we talked about types of CTN monitoring visits, initiation, routine visits, closeout, and for-cause visits. We talked about all of the effort that goes into preparing for a visit. I always go under the follow the rule of thumb that pre-planning prevents poor performance. So that's a good strategy to follow. We kind of broke down the various components of a monitoring visit and also talked about post-visit responsibilities as well as strategies for quality control processes. And I guess before we wrap up, Amanda, do we want to open up the lines one more time for any final questions or points that people want to raise?
Scott, that's a good idea. We have about 12 minutes before we're at the end of our hour. Go ahead and do that. Let's open the lines up.
The lines for your listening audience are open at this time.
Okay, and does anybody have any questions or comments on any of today's content?
This is Lynn from Hopkins. It was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for that feedback. Okay, and also, you know, if you're not coming up with, you know, any questions right now, but if you come up with any later, please feel free to contact Scott or myself. We can be reached pretty easily by email or phone. So we're definitely available for any additional questions you have as you may be preparing for or, you know, wrapping up after a site monitoring visit.
Amanda?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, it's Liz. I just want to let everybody know that we do have a training discussion board enabled as well. So if you get into Live Link, I will send some follow-up information with the follow-up email after this presentation. But we do have a discussion board enabled to collect any kind of questions or follow-up discussions that we may not have time for during this session. Back to you, Amanda.
Okay, so any more questions at this time?
Nope.
All right, then I guess we'll be signing off. Thank you very much for everybody's participation. It was great to get some input from people at different nodes and different sites. I think that's always very helpful, and we can all learn from each other. So I'd like to thank Liz for her support in this training, and Scott also. It's been a great team to work with, and yes, just remember, if you have any follow-up questions later on, just let us know.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right, thanks everybody. That concludes our session today. The information will be available on the CTN Dissemination Library, and we can also send them out on CD to each one of the node coordinators. I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us today.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation.